Jerry didn't mean to get, as the kids say, his dick wet, but wet did his dick get. In fact, he did not get, as the kids say, his dick wet. The kids mean the act of inserting a penis into a wet orifice and remarking on the slippery quality upon said penis thereafter. Jerry had heard his grandson mention it to his friend Timmy in a conversation that went like this. "Oh my God, bro, I was wildin'. She kept frontin' like she wasn't gonna let me bust, but Shorty done spread 'em," he had overheard his grandson say proudly. He and his friend laughed and shared a high five. "That's fucking sick, bro," his friend remarked. "I can't wait to tell all the boys I got my dick wet," his grandson had said. That was the final straw. Now, Jerry knew that the kids these days were more open with their use of swear words, but using degrading words for one's own penis is never acceptable. "Now, Anthony, watch your mouth," Jerry said, entering the room behind the two young boys. Both of them whipped around in shock. His grandson's face turned beet red. Grandpa, it doesn't mean anything bad. It just means I spilled water in my lap." "Well, even if that's the case, son, which I'm sure it is, there is no excuse for using such a nasty and mean word for your penis. It's a beautiful thing, Anthony, and you shouldn't call it a dick. Just say, I can't wait to tell all the boys I got my penis wet," Jerry stated proudly. The boys erupted in laughter. On August 11th, a full week before PS 119 students would return for the start of a new school year, Jerry slipped his ID badge through the card reader and entered the building. Though school wouldn't be in session, the band teacher, Mr. Craig, had his students in the building already for band camp. Jerry always tried to get his fall prep done before band camp began. It was obnoxious trying to do lesson plans when the kids are running up and down the halls blasting notes through their trumpets and tubas. But Jerry didn't have a choice this year. His mother, Beatrice, had passed away over the summer, and the sorting and processing of her estate had left Jerry caught up in Boise, Idaho, longer than expected. Jerry reached his classroom at the far back of the building and noticed the light was already on inside. Perhaps the janitor, Jerry wasn't sure of her name, he just referred to her as Leather Lady, had left the light on when she was waxing the floors yesterday. Jerry turned the doorknob and is greeted with the unmistakable sight of the pimpled-ass cheeks of a teenage boy. "What in the—" Jerry said as he dropped his bag in the doorway. The kid was startled by the noise and quickly turned around, revealing a teenage girl crouching on her knees. The two quickly adjusted themselves and tried to plead their case. "It isn't what it looks like, Mr. O'Donnell, I swear! My mom's a nurse!" "Yeah, and I have this sore on my penis, and my brother had a similar sore, so she said she could diagnose it, and... But the only way to diagnose it was to, taste it," the boy said. Jerry stared in disbelief. In all his training, all the years of undergrad, graduate, and licensure, they had never prepared him for this. "Mr. Bukowski, please go get Mr. Craig immediately," Jerry said to the young man, still covering the bump in his trousers with his trapper keeper. Yes, okay, Mr. O'Donnell, I'll be right back," the kid said as he hurried to the door, dying to get out of there. The young girl started to go too when, "Not so fast, Miss Durbin. You'll wait here as collateral, so your little boyfriend comes back. He's got to rescue his damsel in distress, right, Mr. Bukowski?" Jerry said with a smirk. Sure thing, Mr. O'Donnell." Sorry, Lee," he said with a dejected glance to his girlfriend. There was an awkward silence as Jerry sat across from the young lady. They didn't make much eye contact or have really any physical contact in any way, shape, or form. "So, anything fun happen over summer break?" Jerry asked after what felt like an eternity. The girl was not eager to respond. As you can imagine, this was the most uncomfortable she'd ever felt in her entire life. Not really," she said shyly. "Oh, no, fun trips or anything?" Jerry questioned as he took a sip of his Tim Hortons coffee. It had cooled off enough to drink, finally. He had just hoped he'd be able to drink it while writing the first pop quiz of the semester. The girl looked around awkwardly before saying, "I mean, we went to Charlotte for my grandma's funeral." Jerry's eyes widened as he swallowed a sip of coffee and sat his drink down. "Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry to hear that," he said, gesturing vividly with his hands. "You know, my mother died over the summer, but she lived all the way in Boise." And with that, Jerry knocked over his Tim Hortons coffee right into his lap. "Aw, jeez," Jerry said to his crotch. He dabbed it furiously with the 3 napkins they'd provided him with his bacon, egg, lettuce, tomato sandwich. The mood lightened, and the girl gave a little chuckle just as the door burst open. "What the hell is going on in here, you two?" Mr. Craig demanded. "Ah, Mr. Craig, I found 2 of your students in here. Doing something very inappropriate as they hid from your rehearsal," Jerry tattled. Both of the teenagers looked ashamed to have been caught. "You guys were supposed to be rehearsing the trombone solos on page 13, measures 16 to 20 and 24 to 32. Tell me, were you able to do any rehearsing at all, or was it all blowing Mr. Bukowski's penis and no blowing trombones?" Mr. Craig bellowed. "We rehearsed a little bit," the boy said. "March to the office right this second. We're going to call your parents. And Principal Shepard," Mr. Craig said as he held the door open for the students. Once they were out of earshot, he turned to Jerry. "Sorry about that, Jer. You know how these fucking kids are." "It's all right, Don. It wouldn't have bothered me too much. I just really didn't want to get my dick wet today," Jerry said with a laugh. Don gave him a cross look. "What do you mean you just didn't want to get your dick wet, Jerry?" Mr. Craig asked. "Well, it's like, if she hadn't been in here doing that, I wouldn't have got my dick wet. I would have just come in and got to work on my lesson plans. But since I had to walk in on that, I just got my dick wet," Jerry said plainly, not realizing what he was actually saying. Mr. Craig's eyes widened as he decked Jerry right in the kisser. When Jerry woke up, he found that he had lost his teaching license and was facing a court hearing for soliciting sex from a minor. In light of the young lady's improper and traumatizing encounter with her teacher immediately following, and apparently provoked by, the sexual act she had been performing in front of him, Mr. Craig decided not to question or punish either of the 2 students involved in the incident. Obviously, then, Jerry was completely and utterly confused. Through the whole thing, his grandson Anthony never came clean. Anthony knew that his mother would absolutely ground him past the second Tuesday of never if she found out he had lost his virginity, and there was no way he was missing the Third Eye Blind concert. No, his granddad Jerry would just have to lose his career and register as a sex offender for the rest of time. It's the cost Anthony was willing to pay to hear Stefan Jenkins bust out the high notes in Jumper. And
I'm fucking Janet Ivanovich! What are you doing?